doctor, at least, my question, at least, me personally, as a patient of Crohn's for 39 years now, is I would expect from such people, first, before publishing anything, to, let's say, to have a certain contact to the rest of the group of investigators all over the world before publishing something like that, because they really caused in our forum a big disorder.
Well, the Australian group, I don't know, of course, in detail what their discussions were, but you know, they went through the proper process of publication, submitting it to one journal, which I know wouldn't accept it because it created more uncertainty than anything else. But they got it published by another journal, and since that time, a number of other specialists in the field have written letters to that journal, which have seriously challenged the Australian study and also the interpretation they put upon it. So, as I say, it hasn't improved things by giving us a better idea of where we are. It's just made things more difficult, and it all has to be done all over again.
One of our forum members is mentioning very clearly some people called Clarkstone, Kilinovsky, Collins. Is that saying something to you?
Mike Collins I know well.
Yes.
He's in Wisconsin in the United States.
Yes.
Yes.
So the question was here, these people are reporting differences in the analysis when you are taking samples and you are doing this PCR analysis. How they do, which method they use, I don't know. But this question, in fact, is of somebody who's working in a laboratory in Spain. And this person said, what is the reason of different PCR results, same samples, same material?
Oh, that's very easy. MAP in humans is in a form which is very difficult to detect. You can't see it down the microscope very well, you can't grow it very well, there are no good blood tests for it. You have to demonstrate the presence of the organism, and we've spent, I have to say, years developing and publishing reliable laboratory methods which, if used as we've described them, will detect MAP bugs in about 90% of people with Crohn's disease. And there are other laboratories which have more or less confirmed this. There are many additional laboratories which have done work in the field in which they've not used the correct methods. And this, of course, accounts for the big variety of the range, if you like, of the proportion of people with Crohn's disease in whom MAP bugs have been identified. But I can tell you this for sure, far certain, because I have done more work on this than anybody in the world. And that is this. Most people with Crohn's disease, and by that I mean at least 90%, are infected with the MAP bug. And that is the certain truth. And a good pointer in the direction of that certain truth was published recently in the Lancet Infectious Diseases in a meta-analysis of all these studies. And it actually came down quite clearly with the finding that there was a statistically highly significant and specific association between the presence of MAP and Crohn's disease. What they couldn't say, of course, is that whether MAP was actually causing the Crohn's disease. Mm-hmm. Well, that you have to leave to what I like to call the ordinary sensible person. Uh-huh. You know, we know that 90% of people with Crohn's disease are infected with an organism which is a proven cause of chronic inflammation of the intestine, infecting many animal species, including primates. Now I ask you, where does the balance of probability and risk lie? Yeah. Is the organism by some extraordinary chance harmless to humans? Or is it in fact doing to humans what it can do to primates and cats and pigs and horses?
You mean why should we be different?
Be all that different.
One sentence written in our forum is, our parents have been always living in an existing MAP environment, but did not develop the IBD in same proportion as today they did. What do you think about that sentence?
Yes, this is an interesting question which is quite rightly often asked, which essentially says, to put it in another way, you know, why don't farmers and, for example, veterinarians, why aren't they all coming down with Crohn's disease if the animals have got it and they're more exposed to it? And nothing with MAP is simple. The form of the MAP bug, which is excreted by an infected cow or infected sheep, for example, is one in which is extracellular, it's outside cells, and it's not a form that humans are probably most susceptible to. The form that humans are probably much more susceptible to is when the organism has passed through one of the host cells. Now actually, exposure of farm workers and veterinarians to MAP, to this form that we're not particularly susceptible to, provides them with some natural and naturally acquired immunization. And there's evidence for this. Farmers and veterinarians and people working with livestock have higher levels of antibodies in their blood against MAP. And also studies that have looked at the national mortality statistics in the United States show people like farmers and veterinarians have a much lower chance of dying from inflammatory bowel diseases. So the answer is, almost certainly, that overall environmental and occupational exposure to MAP by proximity to infected animals can confer some natural immunity.
Is this also the case with, for instance, professionals who are working milk, who are working the butchers, people who are working with meat, factories where they are making sausages and so on and so on. So the people are constantly in touch with meat and with milk and with also blood to make the different preparations with blood. Do they risk a certain contamination due to their work and to be in touch with these stuffs, or is MAP only an infection by ingesta, is to say by perhaps food like drink, milk, water, some food, and so red meat, and perhaps also some environmental, so via respiratory situations?
There's no evidence that people working in the milk industry or the meat industry have a higher risk of MAP infection and Crohn's disease.
I'm coming to another problem which we saw a question, especially of one of our friends, amigos, to you personally. Please ask the doctor if he can tell me if cephalorachidium fistula is to say that the liquid from your
yes,
brain,
cerebrospinal fluid, yes,
is